All right, welcome. Today we're going to pry open a treasure chest of medical wisdom, one that's been shaping the way we think about healing for nearly 2,000 years. We're talking about the Jingui Yaolüe. Let's dive in and see what essential ideas are locked inside.
Wow. Right out of the gate, we get the core philosophy of this entire text. This isn't about waiting for things to go wrong. The author, Zhang Zhongjing, is telling us that the absolute best medicine is proactive, not reactive. It's about seeing the storm clouds gathering long before the first drop of rain even falls.
And just let that sink in for a second. This isn't some new age wellness trend from Instagram. This is a foundational medical idea from the Han Dynasty in China. It's a perspective on health that has survived for centuries, way before we had any of the tools we rely on today.
So, what exactly is this text? Well, the name itself, Jingui Yaolüe, kind of gives us a clue. It translates to essential prescriptions from the golden cabinet. It sounds like a collection of precious, almost secret knowledge, doesn't it?
See, this wasn't just some random list of take this for that. The Jingui Yaolüe was absolutely revolutionary because it introduced a system. It taught doctors how to look for specific patterns of symptoms and then match those patterns to very precise herbal formulas. It was this huge leap from guesswork to systematic clinical observation.
Okay, so this goes right back to that opening quote. But how do you actually treat something that isn't a disease yet? What does that even look like? This is where the real genius of the system starts to shine through.
It's all about seeing the body not as a bunch of separate parts, but as a totally interconnected ecosystem. A little imbalance in one spot will eventually cause trouble somewhere else. It's a chain reaction. So the key is to step in before that whole cascade can even begin.
This lays out the logic so perfectly. Now, it's really important to know that in this system, when they say liver or spleen, they're talking about entire functional networks, not just the organs we know from anatomy class. So, if a physician spots an imbalance in the liver network, they can predict its path. They know it's going to mess with the spleen network next. So what's the smartest move? You strengthen the spleen right now, basically building up its defenses before the problem even gets there.
This all sounds amazing, right? But it brings up a huge question. How on earth could they know what was happening inside the body with this kind of detail?
Exactly. They didn't have any of our modern diagnostic toys. So what did they have? Well, they had an incredibly refined system of observation. They had their eyes, their ears, and their hands, and they knew how to use them.
The fundamental idea was that the body just doesn't keep secrets. Whatever's happening on the inside, the state of your organs, the flow of energy, it's all reflected on the outside. You just have to know how to read the map. And this is a perfect example of one of their key tools, reading the complexion. As you can see here, facial color wasn't just a random detail, it was a very specific clue. A bluish tint? That could point to pain. A pale, washed-out complexion might suggest blood loss. Every single shade was another piece of the puzzle.
And then you have the pulse. Now, this was so much more than just counting beats per minute. Physicians would train for years to feel dozens of different qualities. Just look at this slide. The depth alone told a huge story. A floating pulse, when you could feel right at the surface, suggested an external problem, like you're coming down with a cold. But a deep pulse, when you really have to press down for, that pointed to a more serious internal issue that was affecting the organs.
Okay, so the physician gathers all these clues, the face, the pulse, what the patient is saying, and they identify a specific pattern of disharmony. And here's the beautiful part. For every single pattern, there was a specific solution.
Let's look at a real-world example from the text, a condition they called rigid tetanus. Notice this very specific cluster of symptoms. It's not just one thing, it's the whole package. A fever, but with no sweating, a real aversion to cold, and that signature stiffness in the neck and back. This is a very distinct pattern. And for that exact pattern, the Jingui Yaolüe prescribes this specific formula, Gigan Tung. You can see the ingredients here. Each one has a specific job to do. Some herbs relax muscle tension. Others might warm the body. They all work together like a team to address the entire pattern. And that's the crucial point. You don't treat the symptom, you treat the pattern.
When you step back and look at the whole thing, the impact of this text is just, well, it's incredible. This is so much more than just an old book of recipes.
For about 1,800 years, this book has been a cornerstone of medicine in East Asia. Think about that. Generations upon generations of physicians have studied its pages, and a lot of its formulas are still used today. That kind of staying power is just mind-blowing.
And this is its ultimate legacy. It created this powerful, elegant logic for healing, careful observation, thinking in patterns instead of just isolated symptoms, and treating those patterns with incredible precision. That's the framework that has made it an absolute classic.
So, we'll end on this thought. In our world of high-tech scans and super-specialized medicine, what can a 2,000-year-old book really teach us? Well, maybe it challenges us to think a little more about prevention, to see our bodies as the interconnected wholes they are, and to really value the simple, powerful, and timeless art of observation.